Welcome to On the Spot. We have our political analyst, Saquan Jones, to the far right. Steven Thompson right next to me. Good afternoon. Our first subject, Stop and Frisk.
Norm,
That's
this
your
is a
stuff
very, I mean, we live in Brooklyn. Obviously, this is a tremendous situation that it should be, it was near and dear to my heart. I I'm not sure, how you guys feel about it, but I listened to 1010 Wins in the morning. Mm-hmm. It's a, regular news station in the morning, no music, just straight news. And each morning I hear about the NYPD recruitment efforts and how the tone of the recruitment is, if you don't have a job, if you have no other alternative in life, then we're giving the police officer exam 6 days a week now. Come take the test, see how you do, become a part of NYPD's finest.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with the message, but I think that they're attracting the wrong client, the wrong of individuals, and because these individuals have no other choice to get other employment, their last sort of thing they could do is become a cop, and then all they have to do is take the exam and pass the physical. And these individuals are coming in with their own stereotypes, and then once they become police officers, they're stopping and frisking the wrong set of people, or just about any minority.
The Department of Corrections have that same walk-in test. So what is your problem on what they're saying? Oh,
just think, right?
They're letting you know that there's a job available.
No, but just think, right? Does Goldman Sachs do that? Does Morgan Stanley do that? Does corrections? Does sanitation? I never hear a sanitation job recruitment. Never do I hear.
Fire department do it.
MTA.
Well,
they're for minorities. They're not saying anyone. They're recruiting for minorities because obviously they have biased test issues.
Right.
What I'm saying is, Norman, I'm not saying that whoever thought of the marketing plan for NYPD's recruitment, when all you have to do is take a test and pass the physical, they're not. I don't know how
60 college credits.
That's not a lot. That's the only 2 years, no.
Okay, no.
But I can do that at
the
the community college in my sleep.
That's part of it.
They just implemented that, Norm. But I don't want to get off.
Past like 7-8 years.
No.
Sure,
less than 5 years. About the 5.
Corrections.
And the grand scheme of things, how long the NYPD been implemented?
The problem where we have jobs.
Let's go about that, right?
Yes, but we have a job problem in the country. So what?
Not really a job. We don't have we have a job problem, yes, but we don't have. I don't want just anybody policing my streets, no.
Okay.
And the way that other companies and the way that other municipal organizations recruit, you don't see the MTA saying, come and be a train conductor.
But how does that affect the recruitment?
Because they're not recruiting a certain type of person. They're recruiting anyone. And anyone is now becoming a police officer, and now these same individuals come into the force with these stereotypes.
So you have to take a psychological test, brother.
And the result of that is 87% of all minority men are being stopped and frisked. You don't find any correlation between the recruitment of NYPD officers and the amount of people who
for them to stop people of color. It's NYPD strategy.
So what you're saying is policy. So the bigger issue is it's coming down from on top. And whoever's hired doesn't know how to interpret the idea of on the street.
They come in with their preconceived notions of what it is.
Of course.
But that's not NYPD's hiring practice, because correction has the same thing. The bottom line is it's television. I blame it on television. Okay. Whites and people coming from the outer boroughs have a perception of people of color in the inner cities. Right. Why? Because the media does that to us.
I'm not making this about race all the way, Norm.
But Stop and Frisk, you said you bring Stop and Frisk. Stop and Frisk is about race.
But I'm not making because they quantify
only because because the statistics show that 87% of Black and Latino men are the ones being stopped and frisked. Only 9% of Caucasians and only 4% of other, either Asian or other ethnicity, are being stopped. So when you are recruiting just anybody off the street, and all you're saying to Yes, you are, because you just said, "Oh, you got to get college credit."
But then you got to go. Wait. Then you have to answer about 2,000 and change questions, a psychological test, so they can get a psychological profile of who you are.
So there, I guess no racists have ever passed that.
Sure, but you can pass the test because you can fake anything. They ask you a bunch of questions, whether you got hired, whether you did this. They ask you a million questions.
So you're telling me right now, right, that you don't think that there's no correlation between the hiring practices or the recruitment efforts of NYPD and the statistics of Stop and Frisk? You're telling me that you do not find
I'm gonna tell you why it's
the fact that if you're going to do they advertise on Hot 97?
Yes.
I never hear it.
Yes.
I hear it.
Corrections and everything. They do. They do, brother.
Corrections or NYPD?
Both. But what I'm saying to you, the hiring practice, let me explain it to you. The hiring practice has nothing to do with that because they don't make policy. They don't tell you who.
It has everything to do with it, Norm. If I run a company, I only want to
that's working in law enforcement. Can I explain to you what happens? Mm-hmm. If you're a recruit, did the recruit tell you? Did the supervisor tell you, or did you do that when you took the job? They didn't tell you that. They put me in the neighborhood and they said search them.
That doesn't make sense to me.
That's just the reality.
So let me get this straight, right? If I'm going out as an NYPD recruiting and during a NYPD recruiting effort, right?
Yes.
And we say that you need an MBA from a nationally ranked business school in order to be a cop. Do you think that the Stop and Frisk statistics would still be the same?
Because I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to tell you why. At roll call, you were told by your supervisors, you need to come back and bring me 30 Stop and Frisk forms, whatever form number that is. I want 30 from you. Mm-hmm. But if you're in the heart of Bed-Stuy and they got you on a 5-block radius right here on Nostrand and Fulton, and they say in 5 blocks, I want you to search this one, this one, and this one. Who the hell you going to search? That's the only one there.
Your recruits, your commanding officers are not going to say, pick Saquan, Steven, and Norm, because they're not out there. As if you're a heavily educated person, you are able to deduce certain instances where you don't necessarily have to say that a person, the way that they're dressed, means that they're going to have a gun on them, Norm. There's a different deductive reasoning process that goes along with having more than just 60 credits. And when you have only 60 credits,
it comes from the top to the bottom.
No, when you have only 60 credits of college, then you're not going to be, your deductive reasoning is going to be different than someone who has a full 4-year
what is it called?
Education.
What is it called? When they tell you we want 20 people searched in this area.
There's a quota.
Exactly.
But
and with that quota, who are you going to search if that's all that's there?
Because the police force is not smart enough. You get a person who has a college education in psychology, not just college credits in jumping rope or basket weaving. You get a person who is able to deduce his environment and not just go out there and question. The police officers themselves are not questioning their authority because they don't have another choice. If they lose their job, it's it for them. Because their only job was to be a cop. Let me sum it
up for you. The 88th precinct or the 81st
780
whatever was on Ralph Avenue.
Yes.
The man played on the tape where their supervisors are telling them to do it. I work law enforcement. I know how the quota system works. At roll call, you are told what to do.
I am not disagreeing with you, Norm, but if your recruitment effort is saying that I'm willing to take anybody, and the persons who are applying to become police officers don't have another choice, they are not going to question that. For instance, let's give you an example, right?
Paramilitary. Follow rules.
Let me just give you an example. For instance, I'm going to use myself, and I don't want to appear arrogant, right? Mm-hmm. If I go to be a police officer, right, and they tell me to do something, I'm going to question it. You know why? Because I have other options in life. I can say, you know what, you fired me as a police officer, I'm going to work for Goldman Sachs, which I have. I'm going to go work for Morgan Stanley, which I have. So I'm going to come to my commanding officer, and I'm going to say, listen, what you're doing is wrong, and you won't suspend, and if you suspend me, I don't care because I have other choices in life. But when you have a whole existing force, an army, enough to fill a stadium itself, of police officers, where 90% of them don't have another option in life. They're not going to question it, and they're going to do it. And this is why we have the stop and frisk.
Let me close this out. We're going to close it out right now. But I'm going to close it out.
You understand what I'm saying?
I'm going to close it out. But this is what I'm going to tell you. When you went to the academy and they explained to you how this game go, then maybe it's just not for you. Because this is the rule in this paramilitary, the same as in the military. You follow orders. That's it.
That's it.
But on the spot has to come down on the issue of stop and frisk. So we're going to have a show just specifically on one of the things you brought out, some amazing statistics, and what that means. Because they really have to look at, I think there's a constitutional lawsuit out right now. And we can get into that to tell everybody.
But I'm just saying, Steven, I agree. And we'll close it. And I agree with that. All I'm saying to you is you get a smarter police officer, one who isn't just required to get 60 credits, and who has other options in life. And he becomes smarter. She becomes smarter. She or he questions the authority. Then you have less stop and frisk statistics.
We'll close out this We'll close out this show, this segment of the show, and we'll be back. Right. We're back. Next subject, culture wars. We're going to open up with Steven Thompson.
No, we're going to extension of last show that we did. We talked about the issue of culture wars. President Obama's in the middle of a classic. Norm brought up last week that this happens every election cycle. And the whole issue is, what about the culture wars? Santorum has talked about things of women on the front lines, and there's problems, an idea that there will be rape if, in fact, women are now to be in combat in the front lines. They are obviously in the Army now or the armed forces. Today, we're going to go some B-roll and talk to you about there is a backer for Santorum, Rick Santorum, who made a statement about contraceptive.
Well, last week we had a big problem with contraceptive. They said Obama caved in, the White House caved in.
Came with a compromise.
Well, you could put it together in the contraception in Christianity. They can't go. You can't miss out on the two.
Yes, religious wars. The usual stuff that every election time come, we're gonna have a whole big conversation on religion and.
Well, so this comment we just saw a run by a back of the comment this gentleman, Mr. Freeze, made. He's the backer, huge money backer from Santorum about contraceptives in his days. To quote what the man says, it was amazing. In a sense, you can't even repeat it, but you understand that the whole issue is this idea of this battle around the woman's body. Now, we're obviously three men,
of course,
but the issue is constantly coming up about why is it the Republicans...
two men, I am a superhero.
Well, this is true. You visited us for today. You don't have an S on your chest.
I'm not fighting crime right now. So.
But we really have to, and this is a very good section that we talk about, this issue of the rights of women to have totally control of their body, and the issues that even last week we talked about, if we decide to go get a vasectomy and we want insurance, that's paid for. But what if a woman goes and decides that she wants birth control? Mm-hmm. Is that fair that men usually, the majority of men who are in Congress, the Senate, they're going to rule on this? So this becomes the issue of the Republican Party. What do you think? The Republicans are going to get a lot of traction from that?
Well, let me tie it into contraception, Christianity, and the sports world.
Right. That's a reach. He's got.
Let me tell you why this is important. All right. I'm a Broncos fan. Right. I really dislike Tim Tebow.
Okay.
But because he was so heavily Christian based,
right?
You see how the country rallied around him,
right?
To the point where the country felt that because Tim Tebow won, God was on his side,
right?
You have a religious right, a religious moderate, and a religious left,
right?
That were all backing Tim Tebow. Mm-hmm. During this time, you have a religious right, a religious moderate, and a religious left who are backing Jeremy Lin.
Moderate, who pushes that issue more?
See,
that religious issue.
The Republicans do.
Okay.
But because it galvanizes even the casual person.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You understand? So the reason why this is it could be almost potentially scary for Obama for two reasons. They still have a tremendous population who thinks he's a Muslim.
Right.
We have a culture war between Muslims and Christian, the Muslim faith and Christianity.
Right.
And the second component is that you see how with Jeremy Lin, with Tim Tebow, how the country galvanizes around someone who is tremendously spiritual, even if it goes against their better interests. For instance, I'm a Celtics fan.
Right.
And I'm pulling for Jeremy Lin.
Right.
You understand?
So when you
Denver,
right.
you understand when you understand the parallel that I'm making here. When you take contraception, you take Christianity.
Right.
You put the two together. You see how fast this country will get together under a religious.
So the culture wars go all the way. We're looking obviously from one that's a battle, political battle, to sports. It's a big issue, and just to give some context. We're in New York City, and New York City has a new player on the New York Knicks. And in this time, we're at a point where, when this is being broadcast, they won 7 straight. The new addition, Jeremy Lin, is considered, according to the AP, one of the best stories in the NBA in a long time. And he's...
only because he's constantly... And I believe in God and everything, so I just want to make sure that people realize that I'm with him in his faith.
Okay. He's an evangelical.
Yeah.
Right.
The fact that with sports, this is why we have to realize sports, you could be a Republican and you could be a Democrat with the election, right?
Right.
But in sports, you could be a Republican and Democrat and still have something in common.
Right.
So that, and then now you bringing in Christianity into and the culture war starts right there. That's why this is such a big thing. What Santorum is doing.
Right.
And
his conversations.
And his conversations about Christianity, abortion, and all of these things could potentially be a real hurt.
But the issue is that some people say when you get to the general election, there are enough undecideds, moderates, who it balances out. The middle stream of Americans really don't want you telling them how to live their life, and it's a very powerful thing. Obviously, we'll see, because the Republicans now are worried, because if Santorum becomes the nominee, they believe that he cannot attract the moderate
jump
vote.
in here. I'm going to tell you a few things here. First thing, I'm going to get to Jeremy Lin first.
Right.
Second thing, that Republicans are not worried about anything. Grover Norquist said at CPAC.
No, who's Grover Norquist? Who's
the lobbyist?
The lobbyist.
The real strong lobbyist. Right. Pure tax cuts. He's just for tax cuts.
Right. Very much for the rich.
For the rich tax cuts. Yes. Because when the other tax cuts was on the table and low-income people was going to lose their tax cuts, you didn't hear anything from Grover Norquist. Anyway, Grover said at CPAC the other day that basically the presidency is really not that important. Only thing we need a president for is to sign something. We have enough people in Congress to get what we want and throw out legislation, and all we need is anybody can get up there and sign whatever we want. So it's really not a big issue on who, and we're going to play that is show Grover in his rare form speaking about this subject. So they're not worried who get it. Neither one of them. Just do what we tell you. It's what it's about.
Grover Norquist is the guy at Americans for Tax Reform that represents the richest people in the country and the top corporations, and his only objective is to make sure that they get as much tax cuts as possible. Everything else in the budget be damned. Everything else in the country be damned. The budget be damned. The only thing he cares about is tax cuts for the rich, right? Well, here's what he had to say about the presidential candidates. Quote, "All we have to do is replace Obama. We're not auditioning for a fearless leader. We don't need a president to tell us in what direction to go. We know what direction to go. We want the Ryan budget. We just need a president to sign this stuff. We don't need someone to think it up or design it."
All about.
Very
That's the first
idea.
thing. Now, to keep it in the cultural thing, and we're going to bring sports in here, we'll talk about Jeremy Lin. Floyd Mayweather, for example, said if he wasn't Asian, it wouldn't be an issue.
Right.
I look at it on a marketing thing here, because the Asian community overseas is basketball is unreal in terms of their numbers. And they have, 1 billion people over there in China, for example. Right. But what he's doing as a player that was on the D-League, never drafted, was looked at like crap, saved D'Antoni's job, because I'm a diehard Knicks fan, saved D'Antoni's job.
Right.
So someone from Harvard, and you know the saying, white men can't jump, and those type of sayings, so no one would actually believe that one of the first Asian players out here who
Asian American,
right, Chinese,
right,
Taiwanese, yes, right, who came out there and actually is making something happen in the biggest sports mecca, New York City
of the world, right?
Yes, at Madison Square Garden. So yes, it is something. Not only that, why it's become even more. 1 year on a 7-game winning streak.
Come on.
Number 2, you played you were playing a lot of. Wait, hold it. No. Let me finish it.
Okay, I'm sorry.
You have also, while you took that 7-game winning streak, I think 5 of those games, you were without 45 points on the board. You're 20-something from Carmelo, right, and you're 20 from Amari. So your 2 top players were not there. And although you were playing a couple of bums, but at the end of it all, your stats were very good. You were 20 points in every game, and your assists kept going up. No. He's done very well.
Very well.
He's done very well. Tim Tebow, it was more religious than anything else.
Right. Jeremy has shown that he was.
He has a religious component to it.
Right. He has
but
been openly.
His thing is more. The marketing strategy became more about the Asian community and NBA basketball on a broader scale, on an international scale.
But I'm just saying the fact that how religion and Christianity can galvanize this country.
Yes, and marketing also.
Period of time. If we're dealing with culture wars, and Santorum has said some really off-the-wall stuff.
Can I go back to that?
And her supporters.
We must go take a look at what Andrea Mitchell's, the gentleman, what was his name, that she was interviewing?
Forced to freeze.
Oh, yeah. It was hilarious. You have to see. She was stuck.
This contraceptive thing, my gosh, it's such inexpensive. You know, back in my days, they used bare aspirin for contraceptives. The gals put it between their knees, and it wasn't that costly.
Excuse me, I'm just trying to catch my breath from that, Mr. Freeze, frankly.
Her reaction was amazing, too, because she's a veteran reporter. And as a woman, of course...
but you realize that there are people who think like
Of course. There's no doubt that
they have the power to vote.
And their error.
And
he has the money to finance.
They have the power to influence other people.
In this case, he has an amazing amount of money through his CPAC and all of the different issues, because all of this money, and we'll talk about this idea of these super PACs, and this because now, you know, Gendrich had this guy, casino owner, who basically propped up his campaign, but that's an issue. I think now that we're talking about culture wars, and you're trying to talk about what is the issue that continuously wraps this country about Christianity and abortion, it just continues to go on and on.
I'm still say the same thing. I respect it more when we talk about the molestation in the church.
Oh, that was a deep one. And I mean, people obviously.
We're not talking about it.
No, but it's something that the church is uncomfortable with it.
They don't do it enough.
Well, they haven't necessarily resolved from a senior point of view.
There was a point where they thought that the Rome would almost be bankrupt.
Well, the issue is
based off of the amount of settlements.
Well, they do have major problems in the United States.
But you're looking at the United States. You're not looking at what happened in
South
Africa
or Europe has major problems.
Like Asia, you know, like.
But if we bring it back to the culture wars in the United States, one of the things is that we're going to have to look at this, because we're going to continue the culture war conversation in most of the shows, because it's not going away. They keep talking about what's going on with the culture wars. What?
We're going away.
All right.
We'll be back.
You'll be back.
We're back. We're going to open up this segment with Steven Thompson. We're going to first say, listen, GM has record profits. But at the same time, the GOP is in Detroit, where all of them said, forget General Motors, forget the car companies. We don't want no bailouts for them.
Santorum was there.
They're campaigning. They're campaigning at the same time.
He said nothing about the bailout. Now we have to say, if in fact Obama he had to make the call, right? Mm-hmm. He had to say, listen, we're going to bail out the car company. Is this a powerful movement, or anybody give him credit, because GM just reported record profits?
Yes.
So in the idea, they still owe roughly about $25 billion to be paid off, but the car company's still around. Is this powerful? Is this a very important thing that he made as a good decision? What do you guys think?
Well, I mean, you saw that the Republicans were PO'd when he did the State of the Union address, and he actually made that announcement. Sure. And all of the Democrats actually clapped, and none of the Republicans clapped. It's just a travesty what this man is actually experiencing as President of the United States. Any president under normal economic conditions to lower the unemployment rate by over 2% within 3 years would be put on Mount Rushmore.
Yep.
And that's under normal economic situations.
Okay.
When you are reaching what we had when this man became president of the United States.
700,000 lost jobs a month.
Exactly. And we were over 10%, close to almost 13 if you depending on what some statistics said, right? So now we're at 8%.
Right.
The nationally recognized amount when he came into office was 10%.
Right. The benchmark.
The benchmark. Mm-hmm. So you have fluctuations. Mm-hmm. So the nationally recognized was 10, and now we're at 8 in 3 years, and this man is still not given the credit for bailing out GM, bailing out 1 million jobs, or saving 1 million jobs, and now GM is has overtaken Toyota as the #1 car company in the world. And you're not going to give this man the credit that he deserves. He put food on not only 1 million people, because those are 1 million jobs, but how many families? Oh. Multiply that by 4 to 5.
Oh, easily. So the issue becomes, we look at the political landscape, and in that one area, we have to look at what would happen if they let it, go away. The impact in America to really, because you would have to take care of those people. People in heartless ways, well, let it fail.
Yeah.
So you have these families, you have a healthcare system, you have all of these things in Detroit. And the mayor did say, Detroit thanked Obama about, really saving that state. It's amazing.
I want to throw something at you guys, right? And I came up with this theory, and I know we got a little bit of time left, right? Mm-hmm. But I think Obama did too much.
Too much?
During his first administration.
You think it was just too overload?
No, he attacked so much healthcare, bailouts, killing Osama bin Laden, that his message is he has so many good things that we can't focus on one good thing.
But here's the difference.
You understand what I'm saying? Well, when Bush was there, Bush was there, right?
He had Katrina.
Well, I'm just saying, he had the war on terror.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And that was his focus.
Right.
He had the war on terror. That was his thing, the war on terror.
Right. And he had the Fox machine.
But he had it, though. Yes. He had one issue.
One message.
One message.
Okay.
Obama had health care, jobs, economic stimulus, world crises,
right.
Ending wars.
As a result of everything that Bush had going.
So he had done so much that we have nothing to truly focus on, and this is why this is an issue.
Well, maybe the corner's turning, because today they reported that his numbers went up
50%.
Over 50%.
Of course.
Yeah. So people maybe because, of course, unemployment, and the idea that this is necessary, that they will have to give him a second term to finish out. Because some people on the political sophistication curve go, people have not really understood the depth and the breadth of what has happened.
Well, Saquan, just for the record, I want it to be said again. I think the Republicans is going to come up and try to steal election computer-wise.
Oh, we're on record.
Yeah,
I said that before.
They don't have enough. They don't have anybody. The race is not going to be close enough for that.
Well, we have an issue of.
If I steal a few here,
voter disenfranchisement that we did a show a little bit about. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk about that again. And the Justice Department has been involved in South Carolina, stuff like that, and the idea that. But back again, we're talking about the budget. Mm-hmm. Well, we're not going to go too much into the budget, but the issue is his payroll tax. Mm-hmm. One of the things that he got
landed today.
They came up with a compromise, and that's very rare for the Republicans to even compromise on anything.
This wasn't even compromise. He put him in the figure 4 leg lock and made him tap out. Like this wasn't a compromise.
Was it worldwide wrestling? This is
Randy Savage style.
He came off the top rope.
Put your foot on your chest and raise your hand.
We know who likes worldwide wrestling.
Exactly.
It's interesting. Has he become more sophisticated in his political maneuverings? Because this obviously just coming off from everything you talked about in the past, where
he doesn't even have to be now. He could just be like Bush. He could be like Bush.
Well,
you either with me or you're a terrorist. You're either with the poor or you're a rich person who does not care about anything else but yourself.
So these things that Santorum is saying, like, we don't care about the poor, to paraphrase or whatever. I can care. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's why I need Rob to correct me.
Exactly.
But this has now helped Obama. This is really now he has to do things. In this case, the payroll tax. He says $40, which you will get back from this payroll tax 2% kind of the tax credit. This $40 means a lot for working people. I mean, does it?
Yes, it does. But unfortunately, we're going to have to wrap this up.
And we're going to come back.
We're going to come back on Obama's budget.
Okay, we're going to look at that.
Let's look at the budget and let's dissect what we have going here. How does it affect our community?
Good.
We'll be back.